Welcome back to Steel City Sports. So about 2 weeks ago, I put out a video titled My Finals Jets Rant, where I basically just had to get off my chest all my final grievances about the Jets season as a whole. That way we wouldn't have to talk about them really a whole lot more on the channel. Well, today I'm going to be doing that same exact thing just for the Chicago Bears. I think a team that is basically in the same exact position of the New York Jets, just in terms of how disappointing they were this NFL season. And unlike the Jets, I actually had higher expectations for the Bears. I actually predicted the Bears to be a playoff team, whereas I didn't predict the Jets to be a playoff team. So I'm going to get into basically all my final thoughts about the Bears. That way we don't have to talk about them a whole lot more. Obviously, we did get the news last week that Matt Eberflus was officially fired, something we had talked about for, felt like, a year plus on this channel that was going to happen. So we're going to get into my first reason why the Bears really failed this season, and it's very obvious. It's the coaching staff just clearly did not know what they're doing. There's usually a common theme with unsuccessful NFL teams, and that is the people running the show do not know what the fuck they're doing. And that was clearly the case here with the Chicago Bears, with their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, handling a generational quarterback prospect. Do you think, I don't know, maybe we'd want to get like an actual adult in there with Caleb Williams who knows what the fuck they're doing? No, they go in bargain bin diving with Shane Waldron. He didn't even last the whole year. He got fired after 10 games. That's how bad he was at his job. And then, of course, Matt Eberflus was fired after Week 13, the Thanksgiving game against the Lions. We're going to get more into that game, obviously, specifically because I think that game did a perfect job of just highlighting the failure that is Matt Eberflus. But I do want to touch on this real quick, and I'm going to put a video in the description to this past offseason. I made a video talking about what the Bears need to do in the past offseason, and the number one thing on that list was fire Matt Eberflus. So I will put that in the description. I don't really think that's a bold take. I think a lot of people were kind of shocked that Eberflus was back, but I've said this point a lot, and I'm going to continue to say this. Well, hopefully this is the last time I have to say this because we won't have to talk about Eberflus anymore. But this was the most important season, I think, in the franchise of the Chicago Bears. When you look at everything that went on, bringing in a generational level quarterback, at least from he was a generational prospect in Caleb Williams. This is a Heisman winner, one of the best college players we've ever seen. You're bringing him into your franchise along with a bunch of other moving parts. You brought in Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. You even brought in some defensive guys. There was a lot of moving parts. They actually tried to bring in really good players to this football team. So a lot of stuff moving around here, a lot of important players you're bringing into the franchise. And who do you let run that ship? Matt Eberflus, of all people. That is the guy you're going to give the keys to your franchise when you're in arguably the most important season, the most important offseason in the history of your organization. You're going to let Matt Eberflus, of all people, guide that. Well, no shit, this season didn't work out. You're going to give basically a no-name, average defensive level coach who I don't think will ever be a head coach in the NFL ever again. You're going to let that guy run that important of a season for you. Like, this had disaster written all over it, and I was willing to overlook that because I thought their talent was going to outweigh it, but it's clear coaching is the most important thing in the NFL. And I think I'm going to have to stop making that mistake where I just kind of overlook coaching woes, because I did that with them this year. I've done it with other teams in the past. Like last year, you guys know, if you listened to me last year, I always thought Brandon Staley was a fucking idiot, but I still picked the Chargers to be a playoff team because I just thought they had the talent. They won 5 games. I kind of did a similar thing with the Bears this year. I was like, yeah, I don't really trust Eberflus, but they have a lot of talent. So it's clear talent cannot outweigh incompetent coaching. And I think that that's really what it comes down to with the 2024 Chicago Bears. Like I said earlier, the people running this team just don't really know what they're doing. That's why the offensive coordinator's gone. That's why the head coach is gone. So it was just a catastrophe to let Matt Eberflus be the guy running this important of a season. Matt Eberflus is when you look at his record, I don't think he's ever won like a home game on Sundays or something like he has some astronomically, ridiculously bad stat. Doesn't really inspire confidence whatsoever. He's not a great leader of men, and yeah, he's a defensive coach, but their defense was ranked 26th this year. So it's like it'd be one thing if the offense was really up in the air and we didn't really see a whole lot from Caleb. But if their defense was dominating, then you could be like, okay, I kind of see what Eberflus is bringing to the table. They had the 22nd defense in the NFL. So their defense was bad, and that's with having players. It's not like this defense is filled up with scrubs. They have real players on this team with like Sweat, like Kevin Byard they brought in, like Jalen Johnson, who you could argue is a top 3 corner in the NFL. I even like Tyreek Stevenson, obviously, before the whole Hail Mary debacle, which we're going to get into. But, like, this team has players on defense, and they were kind of showing signs of that last year, and then they completely regressed into this season where they were just basically a non-effective unit, got torched by bad teams, just bad football teams. This defense got destroyed by. So going forward, I don't know. I mean, this gets into another point, kind of similar to what I said about the Jets, is like, yeah, it's a good sign that you cleaned house, but do you really trust this organization to get their shit right? Like, do you really trust the Bears going forward to hire the right guy? I certainly don't. And when you look at the Bears, just look at like the past decade, or even under a decade, going back to 2017. This is now the third time since 2017 where they bring in a high quarterback prospect and they give him 2 head coaches, 2 systems within their first 2 years in the NFL. That is not a successful setup. That's not a recipe for winning, because with Mitch Trubisky, his first year, they had John Fox. They fired him after a season, brought in Matt Nagy. Then they drafted Justin Fields. Matt Nagy had him for a year. They fired Matt Nagy and brought in Matt Eberflus. Then with Caleb Williams, he had Matt Eberflus his first year. He's gone now. He's going to be having a new head coach next year. So when you talk about the Bears, everyone throws around that statistic of they've never had a passer throw for over 4,000 yards in a season. Well, how could they? Look at how this team treats their offense. Look at how this team treats their coaching staff. This is a team that is completely incompetent and does not know what they're doing. I think that stems from ownership. That stems from the management of this team. You have the president, Kevin Warren, who I think is just a total fucking moron, and was widely hated by Jim Harbaugh. And, if it comes down to Kevin Warren versus Jim Harbaugh, I would trust Jim Harbaugh's judgment 1,000 times over Kevin Warren. Kevin Warren is the president of the Chicago Bears. And anytime a team has a president where it's like the GM and the coach have to answer to a president, that kind of that's another clear red flag that management doesn't know what they're doing, where you need like a stopgap between the front office and the owner of the team. Because I don't know how this ownership continues to get away with this stuff. I mean, I think that this Bears ownership is really now starting to enter one of the worst ownership groups in the NFL right now with how they've treated these high-end quarterback prospects, how they've ruined them. They're well on their way to ruining yet another high-end quarterback prospect with Caleb Williams here. So I want to get into some of their really bad losses this year. Because when you look at their schedule, this team was not bad to start off the year. They were 4-2 going into the bye. They actually were showing some promise going into the bye. If you remember, Week 5, they smacked around the Carolina Panthers 36-10. I know it's the Panthers, but it definitely was a big confidence boost for Caleb Williams. Then Week 6 in London, we had Caleb Williams' best game of the season, where he threw 4 touchdowns. They beat the Jags 35-16 in London, which is basically a home game for the Jags. So they went into the bye week at 4-2. Things were looking pretty optimistic for this team. It's like, hey, it looks like Caleb's getting on the right track. They kind of figured out this offense. Something I talked about a lot on this channel was the reason why Caleb was looking better going into the bye was because they were actually getting support from their run game with DeAndre Swift. Because the first 3 games of the season, DeAndre Swift was arguably the worst running back in the NFL. Go look at his numbers. They were pitiful. But Week 4 and on, he started to pull his head out of his ass and really was a productive player. And when you're a young quarterback, you're really dependent on your run game. So Caleb was looking a lot better when he was getting support from DeAndre Swift. So they were 4-2 going into the bye. However, after the bye, the Chicago Bears went on to go 0-6. So after the bye, they went on a 6-game losing streak, and obviously now Eberflus has been fired. And it's not like they were playing, like they did have some rough games at the later part of the schedule, but some of these losses were just pathetic, like downright pathetic losses. Of course, week 8, you have the Hail Mary, it's just a freak play. That really came down to Tyreek Stevenson being a complete clown. And I said at the time, like, I don't know how, like, he's a really good player. He's like an up-and-coming player. You drafted him in the 2nd round just a couple years ago, but after he does something like that, I don't know how you can bring him back into that locker room. Like, he literally was the biggest clown in the NFL for that week, basically talking shit to the fans, not really knowing what's going on. He was still talking shit to the fans after the ball had been snapped. Then he runs over, tries to tip the ball down, and instead he tips it up to Noah Brown for a touchdown, and the Commanders win with a Hail Mary. That right there is a total, just unacceptable loss. And I really do think that you could have had the real conversation that even though he's a good player, for what he did in that moment, he should have been cut, because that is just fucking completely unacceptable for an NFL professional player. Week 9 against the Arizona Cardinals, they got fucking slaughtered by the Cardinals, 29-9. And we talked about this when the Jets got smoked by the Cardinals. Again, with the Bears, like this Bears team, they have weapons. They have really good weapons, actually. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. They have more than capable weapons on this team, and they were just held to 9 points by the Cardinals. Maybe I'm just disrespecting the Cardinals. Maybe the Cardinals defense needs more respect, but I talked about this with the Jets. When the Cardinals held the Jets to whatever it was, I think 3 points, I said, can you name 3 defenders on the Cardinals? It's kind of the same thing here with the Bears. Like, with all the firepower you have, I get it if, the Steelers or take any other of the great defenses out there, like the Eagles right now. You take, one of those teams. If one of those teams, suffocates your offense and you can't really do anything, that's understandable. But against the Arizona Cardinals, they have a bunch of nobodies on their defense. You only put up 9 with all that offensive firepower. It's really just another massive red flag. Then, week 10, again, what we just talked about, against a bad team. The Patriots are arguably the worst team in the league this year. They're going to be in competition for the number 1 overall pick. You put up 3 points against that team. 3. Bill Belichick ain't there anymore. Last time I checked, all their sweet defensive guys are gone. This is very far removed from what the Patriots once were. You put up 3 with all those guys we just talked about. You got fucking scorched by the New England Patriots of all teams. That, of course, after that game, they went on to fire their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. I really think after that game, they should have fired Eberflus after that one. At this point in the season, it was inevitable that Eberflus was done, and then they just went on to lose. Their offense, I will give them credit, their offense did look a lot better after they brought in the new offensive coordinator, after Waldron was gone. So I think that was a clear indictment that Shane Waldron simply did not know what the fuck he was doing. And again, I hate to get on all these side tangents, but again, that really just highlights that management doesn't know what they're doing. How can you put an offensive coordinator that doesn't know what they're doing, take that guy and put him with your generational quarterback talent? You think you'd want to nail that. Maybe we fuck up on a couple position coach hires, but you fuck up on the guy who's directly impacting your generational prospect. You think you'd want to get that one right at least. If anything else fucks up, at least that guy should know what he's doing, right? But no. They hire a complete moron in Shane Waldron, and the second he's gone, the offense picked up and looked a lot more confident, and they were much more closer to beating actually good teams after he was gone. Green Bay in Week 11, they only lost by 1 point. They almost won that game. Week 12 against the Vikings, I'm pretty sure that one went to overtime. They only lost by a field goal, 30-27. Then, of course, we get to the Thanksgiving debacle this past Thursday. They lost 23-20. The fact that I really genuinely believe that it is the worst clock management, the worst example of clock management I've ever seen with my 2 eyes. And particularly to do that, Like, it's one thing to do, like, doing that at any point of time as a coach, as a professional level coach, is a fucking train wreck. It's an embarrassment, no matter when you do that. But it's one thing to do it on, like, a 1 o'clock slate on Sunday when there's, like, 10 other games going on. To do that on a Thanksgiving primetime game when you know, like, 50 million people are watching you, and you go out there and do that and just completely shame the organization you're a part of. Like, that is a just generational, shameful move there from Matt Eberflus. It's legitimately one of the most idiotic things that I've ever seen in my life. And I'm kind of surprised that he wasn't fired sooner, because I believe they fired him the day after. I would have fired him the second that clock ticked down to 0. He would have been gone. For that is just totally, completely unacceptable for what happened there. And I'm glad at least, finally, it took long enough, but the Bears finally did decide to get rid of Eberflus. So that puts us at a point now, sitting today on whatever it is, December the 4th. The Chicago Bears, a team with a ton of hype, had a ton of talent, a lot of upside. They're sitting at 4-8. They have absolutely zero shot of playoffs. I mean, they're probably mathematically eliminated already. They have an interim head coach. They have an interim coordinator. What a fucking mess. And it's like, how did we get here with a team that had so much promise? And I think, like I said, and I said the same thing about the Jets, it's just a common theme with bad teams. When you put people running these teams in positions of power that don't know what they're doing, it's going to be reflected on the field. And that's exactly what happened with the Bears. They have the 22nd defense in the NFL. They have overall the 26th offense. With that much offensive firepower they have, again, I don't really even think I can justify how big of a mess that is to be the 26th offense in the NFL and you have that much firepower. They also have the 26th ranked offensive line. So there's no like quick fix here. Like I've talked about in the past with other bad teams, it's like, okay, we can, at least there's a silver lining of like we can reset things. We can bring in everybody new, draft a new quarterback, kind of like what Washington did last year. Like, they just reset everything, new coach, new GM, new quarterback. You can't really do that with the Bears. Like, this is your set core of guys. Caleb, Rome, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Montez Sweat. Like, these are your core set of offensive guys. I don't really think there's a big change you can make here. And I don't think this is going to be a very desirable job. So I don't think they're going to attract some of the top, coaching candidates out there. Like, if the Bengals job is open, I don't know if it will be, but if it is, coaching Joe Burrow is about as good as it gets. Also, the Cowboys job could be potentially open. There's going to be a bunch of jobs open. So it's like I said this earlier in the video. Do you really trust, of all franchises, the Chicago Bears to right this ship? Because I certainly do not. The history of their franchise, they've been a perpetual clown show, especially over the past couple decades, because they just don't know what they're doing. They haven't had sustained success at all. They haven't had we talked about it, they haven't had a quarterback over 4,000 yards ever. Do you really trust this team to figure it out? My money's on they're going to fuck it up. Caleb's career is going to be yet another disappointment. So that's been basically my final Bears rant. I just wanted to get all this shit off my chest, and that way we don't have to talk about the Bears anymore going forward until the offseason. So, again, like I said in the Jets one, guys, if you're Bears fans, I'm not really trying to hate on you. Like, I actually feel bad for you guys because you deserve a lot better than this. You deserve a lot better than what the Bears gave you this year. So I'm not really trying to be like an asshole to the Bears fans. This is more so like a fuck you to Bears management, trying to, critique what went wrong with this team. So, that's the end of my rant here. If you guys made it this far in the video, really appreciate you listening. I will be putting a link in the description, my video about the Bears before the season started, where I said fire Eberflus. So if you want to hear my thoughts before the season started about the Bears, go check that out. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe.